of divine convergence. I'm 18 and I'm finally free. With a stash of drugs, a hunk of sheetrock from her childhood home, and a bloodied hand, Gypsy Hyman drove out of town in one of her dad's old cars with plans of never looking back. Well, at least until things began to resemble a deeper crevice in hell. The car bumped over the unpaved road, and the springs deep in the seat squeaked with each pothole. Gypsy felt the noise echo within her as she bounced up and down. The light of freedom in ahead and contrasted with the terrible darkness she felt inside, and it was coming with her. It wasn't staying. The dream catcher hanging from the mirror swayed as the feathers danced with dust thrown in the open window. The fuzzy audio of Fleetwood Mac's Dreams blared through the speakers, one of her favorites from Dad's record collection. Every cover in that collection of vinyl told a story, making her wish she had taken them along with the drugs. The 60s, all the peace, love, and music. She was headed to any other town. I'm going to find a man to love me, really love me. Not that fake oil painting. Show out. She cursed under her breath. 50 miles passed with the stereo blasting. Gypsy felt her vocal cords vibrate as she screamed the words to every song on the radio, hoping it would numb and entertain her enough not to feel. Gonna find some peace and love. The quest to escape pain had commenced. Her eyes caught the road in the rearview mirror. Tears fell. She remembered her life and tried to forget her life, all in one moment. And in that moment, she saw a man walking down the side of the interstate. The minute she set eyes on him, she thought she heard, "This journey will cause you more pain. Beware." This time the words tumbled around deep inside of her, triggering that eerie old feeling, as though a strong wave of home came into her car for a moment. She felt a bit nauseous again, a bit fearful. She looked to the side to rest her mind for a moment, just long enough to ingrain the warning into her memory. And even stranger, noticing that the warning seemed to be connected to the hitchhiker. Ignoring reason was one of her many talents. She grinned at the thought, but her stomach dropped at what her brain was taunting her to do. Once again, it was struck. She returned her gaze to the brawny figure on the road behind her and slowed the car almost to a halt. The ruggedness of the jeans and the dusty boots, the sway of his body, and the direction his feet, hips, and arms took as he walked towards the car all flooded her mind. The white line was buzzing in her peripheral, and she finally felt the tension of the brake beneath her foot as the car slowly, gradually, although it wasn't her intent to actually stop the car. His thumb was not out. Is he just walking down the highway, not needing anyone? Gypsy caught her reflection in the mirror. Her cheeks had already turned a brilliant shade of pink. Her brain went blank as the car finally came to a halt. The pressure from the seatbelt and her muscles relaxing was simultaneous. Within a minute, he had covered the ground she had only covered seconds before. His waist hit her passenger window. What does his face look like? What does his nose look like? Eyes. The window was already open, and in he came, forearms and all. "Can I help you?" James asked. He looked familiar. She was dizzy, eyes wide open, staring and scared. She shook her head. How is his face a memory? At that moment, she knew she needed to press the gas and leave, but she was too good at making bad decisions. You own this highway? Gypsy grinned. Help me. I'm stopping to help you. She realized her sarcasm. If you can help me, please be my guest. She smirked. The task is impossible. Tell you what, you can help me. I'm going up the road. About 20 miles. Too much for you? James asked. 20 miles on foot? Maybe you do need me. Gypsy sat back, crossing her arms, clenching her teeth and shaking her head. James must have taken that as permission to enter the vehicle because he opened the passenger door and slid in beside her, not bothering with the seat belt as she merged onto the interstate. The drone of the old car and the wind made it hard to hear, but she was glad they managed to talk over the racket. Are you in a cult or something? Cult? Racket. Are you in a cult or something? Cult? Sorry. At the rearview mirror. Dreamcatcher, Gypsy said. Indians used to use them to keep bad dreams away. The web catches the bad dreams, and the center lets the good ones in by dripping down the feathers and onto the sleeper at night. You sleep in your car? No. You dream a lot? James turned to Gypsy with a very concerned look. I do. Gypsy realized at that moment that there was something odd about both of them, but in a very opposite way. A bond took place at that moment, and she felt trapped again. Trapped on her freedom crusade. What a bunch of nonsense. But she was so accustomed to it that she didn't know how to escape. She felt rage inside, rising. She felt hopelessness. So once again, she just went with the feeling. In that moment, she could tangibly feel a piece of herself, her soul, accepting another dark bond. Alone, dizzy, nervous. The unexplained feeling was imperviously normal and accepted in her world. She recognized James' mouth curve up as he looked away. Somehow she knew he won. She knew that he knew. She grabbed hold of the connection. Gypsy watched the dreamcatcher sway to the car's movement as both remained silent until silence became uncomfortable. You an Indian? James asked. I am so many things. One car ride is not enough time. I'm really not going anywhere specific. More looking for someone specific to go anywhere with, James said. Gypsy heard him, nodded, smiled in agreement, and kept her foot on the gas pedal until she heard Wedding Bell March ringing in her ears. Dun, 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 dun. The Machine Gun Wedding. The wedding, weeks later, didn't match her dreams. Their only on-duty witness was a one-eyed veteran cologned with bourbon and cigarette smoke. He was dragged in front from outside the courthouse by the other witness, an off-duty cop. Gypsy's soul sang at the sparkling cubic zirconia from Walmart. Maybe one day the stone will be replaced with something real. Her nostrils twitched as her nose caught the sweet chemical smell of her plastic bouquet. They were so excited to get married. Gypsy used both hands to try to press out the wrinkles on her only set of clothes. She smiled and rolled her eyes, catching herself, looking over to check for wrinkles on James. The only thing Gypsy didn't want to remember was that the judge, a tall, dark-haired, slick-looking man, must have been raised in a church because he said 3 times, "Let no man take apart what God has put together." She noticed when these specific words left his mouth, his voice deepened, and the word of God came out with a hollow, empty sound to it. Gypsy found the statement odd. Among all the traditional mumbo-jumbo, he reminded her of a shapeshifter or some kind of false impersonator. Remembering when Uncle Ken told her that Satan knew the Bible better than anyone. She noticeably shivered and felt herself trying to shake something off. The two smiled and kissed. Gypsy tossed the bouquet in the direction of the one-eyed vet, and they left the building with a legally binding document that made the two one. Whatever that meant. Gypsy didn't know. Deep down, she even felt that she would soon regret this day more than any of the days she had experienced before she had a choice. Gypsy's heart was heavy, and she felt pressure in her ribs as she remembered what her uncle had told her. A covenant had been made, and where covenants are made, rebellion attempts to flourish. He would go on to say the human condition is to escape or thwart rules. A box is fine until you put a person inside it, and then the box becomes a catalyst for escape. Gypsy whispered, especially a box with a demon taking up residence as well. Chapter 6. Let no one take apart. Hope you guys are enjoying. I have to take my boots off. It's about to get good. Gypsy blew the smoke out of her lungs, turned to go back inside, and squinted upward at the home that she and James had purchased together. She couldn't believe that they had been there over a year and married almost 4. She cocked her head at the vinyl siding, shook off the dots dancing in her eyes from the afternoon sun, and sneered at the unkept yard. Thank you. Not again. Grass is long again. But it was better than the roach-infested apartment or Lilith's witch's lair. She breathed in, remembering the day when her office position and James' garage job got them out of the rundown apartment they were renting. Her eyes wandered to Terrell's driveway next door. His car was gone, but the buckets of tools in the front of the garage door told her he'd be back soon to start on a project of some sort. She wished she could talk to him now, get some of these feelings out. He always seemed to be able to make sense of the confusion. She lingered a minute, longer, driving her fingernails deeper into her palm, supposing that Terrell might round the corner and drive up suddenly. He'd seen her standing there and meet her in the green space between their driveways, asking her if it was another one of those days. But the road remained quiet and still. She would need to process alone. She entered her house, finally, swaying from all the alcohol, and gazed at the dirty carpet James was lying on while staring up at the TV. "You glad we got married, James? All you do is watch TV and smoke pot." James jumped to his feet, and Gypsy flinched as his hand stretched out towards her and threw her neck back. She winced at the streak of fire that ran through her back and head as the flesh on her cheek began to burn. She tried to stand up from losing her balance from the blow. It wasn't enough. She heard and felt her hair being ripped from her head as he yanked her up, back to the ground. She went, and then up again. This time, her stomach wasn't falling. Her insides were seething with anger. She gritted her teeth and held back the words she knew not to speak. Thank you, George. The tears she hated could not be sucked back in like air. James stepped back and inhaled deeply, eyeing her, no doubt waiting for a reaction, wondering if he'd provoked her enough. "It's you, Gypsy. You're a worthless loser. I hate you. You're always blaming me for everything." A wave of sadness flooded her eyes and spilled down her face, neck, and heart. She hadn't the strength to hold them back. "How much did you drink this time?" he yelled, followed by a string of profanity. Her eyes widened. She hated herself more and more with each word he spoke. His lies twirled and bent inside her, but she could not stop receiving them. They would beckon to her. They were her truth. He was so good at making everything about someone else. So good at piling on the guilt. So good at control. The perfect puppet master. Gypsy clenched her teeth. "You're a bipolar freak. Just like your mom. Your whole family is abusive addicts." She wanted the words out there as much as she wanted to pull them back in. Addiction? Really? His laugh was brief and cruel. Coming from a witch on pills. That really isn't saying much. "I'm not a witch. I'm a Wiccan. I was a Wiccan. You're hopeless. And that was a long time ago." Gypsy sobbed, ducking, cringing, as the glass passed by her head, hit the wall, and shattered around her bare feet. Then a crack as the chair hit her across the ribs. She fell onto the glass, which penetrated her hand. Tears dropped with the blood. When she flipped her hand over, she noticed that the blood was covering the star scar from years earlier. "He's out of control. The marriage is too complicated to fix." Gypsy shook her head. Deep inside were screams, accepting the blame and demanding she stay. "I just wanted to be loved. Instead, I'm asking for abuse from a sick, insane man." Her head, too heavy to hold high anymore, dropped as she cleaned up her blood and swept up each shard of reflective glass. She was thankful that the glass would shimmer so she could find it all. But there was always some left to stab. There will be no apology. The tears dropped, and she clenched her fists and showed her feelings and shoved them feelings down. "I hate his stupid family. They need to stay away. She dug deep, her head pounding from all the beer and tears, to remember the day when the real abuse started. Less than a month after their lonely wedding at the Justice of the Peace, should be called the injustice of chaos. The habitual mental abuse superseded her physical pain. And every time she breathed, her rib told her of its crack. She had quite a repertoire of tactics to numb physical pain. But those words, those brutal words, they went to a deep place that she did not know existed. I hate him. She shook her head and wanted to curl up on the floor and disappear. She slumped over the broom handle, paranoid of his whereabouts. I can't even control myself. I'm right back where I was, but just with a different address. Uncle Ken was so right. What I would not give for the last few years back to make different choices. She gazed at the twinkling glass slivers left on the parquet floor, thinking of how the marital warfare was the opposite of what her father had done to her. She knew it was only compounding her pain. All I do is try to figure it all out, she yelled. How can I be better, act better, to stop the abuse? How can I fix it, fix him, fix me? I have fixed nothing. Her stomach almost left her as shivers went up her spine. She turned to see if he was coming at her from behind, from her yelling. The cruelty felt like it was making a rubber band fall in insides. She wondered if she was just in total rebellion all the time. To everything. After his constant blame towards her, she began to accept that her decisions were what escalated the verbal tirades to a destructive brawl, sometimes requiring the flashing lights of a cop car. She knew better than to call for help. 5 fingerprints took weeks to disappear. If he grabbed her arm just right, her tattoos would swallow the evidence, or at least allow it to blend into the tapestry. Gypsy saw her destiny, and it resided outside her cage. She breathed deeply, knowing that she was not strong enough to swing open another caged door. She screamed, I am so sick of this life, so sick of it all. She thought of her mother and how in the morning she stood gazing downward, holding a cup of coffee in her frail hands and shaking just enough for only those who knew her to notice. I vowed to never be her, and I am her. I have become her. The vow had become an unconquerable challenge and a curse. Lilith, the witch, first my own dad, and now I'm so stupid. I chose my own abuse again. I am the stupidest person alive. No one's listening, princess. I'm the only thing you have in this life. He did not just have the audacity to mutter that as he passed through the kitchen, did he? Gypsy continued the madness as she took the figure in through slitted eyes, slaving to clean up his mess. She wished the things that she had wished for in this life would die. She knew when he was doing things behind her back because she would shake like she was having an allergic reaction. It was as if her spirit was 10 steps ahead of the natural world, and she had no control over nor any idea of the depths of why. The same feeling occurred when his mother entered the room, sick. She also knew when she was doing wrong because she couldn't even drink or smoke without all the guilt in the world smothering her like a wet blanket. Was it the witchcraft, spirits, God, or Satan that had given this to her? Why her? Why so much pain? Please help me, God, she said, keeping her voice low enough so James wouldn't return. I've got to get out, but I'm terrified. I want him dead. I want him to die. Then it can end. I want it to end. I'm not strong enough. Please help. I want peace. When do I get to live without peace, without bondage, beatings, control? Why does my life have to be like this? James had some really sick mental issues that had likely been caused by his messed up family. They had used, abused, trained him like an animal, and he seemed to love to hurt people. Every few days, it manifested towards her. She knew it was his choice, but she stayed out of fear, knowing his mother was more evil than Lilith. He wasn't about to admit his sickness, because then he would have to stop, and if he stopped, then he would actually have to do something with all the pain in his life. Instead of vomiting it out on her, deep down, she knew he couldn't care. He was never wrong in his mind. As he turned the corner, JYPSY muttered, he learned how to escape the abuse by abuse. What a conundrum. JYPSY knew staying made her even sicker, but the thought of facing life alone was enough to throw her into a muddy place where she could not decide right from wrong. Brainwashing, Stockholm Syndrome, how about just messed up? JYPSY knew life offered no better than him. And when that small, still, butterfly-like voice alightened to remind her about the promises, she stifled it. She closed her eyes and grimaced. Had she actually been made to become evil, to crave evil? Can we become so surrounded by it for so long that we actually need it? James did. Maybe she needed to be abused too. He knows my pain just like I know his. She swallowed a lump of fear in her throat, tossed the broom to the floor, and followed him to apologize. Please forgive me. Please. He turned his back to her. Go on, JYPSY. Being wise to the fact that the cycle of abuse was like clockwork made her feel beyond stupid for staying. The fights came every few weeks, and it was pure torment for a week. Torment from within him was a cycle that had either been embedded in him from birth or exacerbated in him as a little boy. She knew from watching his family scream at each other. It was a sick rage fest that she now, proud owner of. As if I needed more rides at my carnival. In the silence of his rejection, she put her hands over her nose and mouth and breathed in, pressing her fingers into her sore eyes and upwards onto her brow bone that ached. Then she stood, steadied herself, and went behind the house on a hunt to find peace. Just the thought of James finding her again was making her crave the poison of the smoke. Another way to control the pain. Once again, her mouth got the best of her. But thankfully, she was out of James' earshot. I want him to die. I hate him. Her stomach acid churned. When it heard the crack of the lighter, a demon deep inside rested for a moment. Even before she took a drag, she knew that soon the dizziness would make her feel worse. She cradled the wickedness, accepting the rule of rebellion. As the smoke left her pinched lips, she drew in another breath, dropping the cigarette and hiding it in the pine straw. She then made her way through the dark garage and hit the light switch on the wall. She reached deep in the bottom drawer of the refrigerator. Embarrassment rose out of nowhere as she dug beneath the food to find her stash, her 11th beer, the pop of the top and the scent of the malt and barley erased reality for a moment as she exited the garage, hiding behind the house. In the dark, she sipped the froth and prepared for another smoke, feeling at peace when James turned the corner and stared in disgust. "Loser." She knew she was. Her sin was no better than his. His breath, coupled with spit, hit her face. A sharp pain traveled up her leg as his shoe purposefully crushed her foot. He grabbed the cigarette, causing ash to singe her hair. He smashed it against the wall, inches from her face. The cold beer splashed over her head as he baptized her in the venom. Violation erupted from her soul. "You're the loser, James. I hate you," she said through tight teeth. "You treat me like a dog." She knew her words pierced his brokenness and were no different than his parents years earlier. "He provokes me just like they provoked him." "You're no better than a dog." She knew he wanted to hurt her. Thankfully, was too stoned to bother. Tears once again streamed down her face as she made her way inside towards her stash of drugs. As she entered the closet, the carpet pad under her bare feet began to dip. Her way of knowing in the dark that she was close. Everything she did to cope was done in secret and in darkness. She ventured behind the clothes and shoes and dug in a random purse, rummaging through pens and papers. Her shoulders relaxed with a premeditated peace as her hand captured the little orange opaque bottle full of calm and 4 hours of fearlessness. The fear and panic came roaring back, consuming her mind. She was inebriated, yet the anguish this time felt strangely spiritual. "God, I'm going crazy." She knew something was coming, but couldn't put the pieces together. The alcohol, the emotional pain were clouding everything. She felt like she was free falling without anyone or anything. Lost, totally lost. Her mind spinning out of control. She put several pills in her mouth, letting them turn bitter on her tongue. She could hear the air leave her chest as she made her way to the faucet. As she caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely felt the cold water touch her mouth. Someone was behind her, and it was not James. The blow to the back of her head sent her skull colliding into the faucet, and everything went black. Chapter 7, A Gypsy for the Devil. We'll read one more chapter, if that's okay with you guys. Flickering twinkles of light shone through her eyelids. Gypsy's skin felt sticky and damp from the warm moisture that seeped into her garment, beckoning her to wake. She strained to focus as her eyes went from blurry to clear, realizing that she was lying on a forest floor. The ground seemed murkier, like after a rain. Turning her head, fighting the muscle pain, she noticed that the tree roots were tangled, seemingly all above ground. She rubbed her finger and thumb together. Weird, rough, crystal-like sand was in the soil. Looking up, she saw the tip of a metal antenna tower amid the forest of trees. Her throat clenched as the acidic pill residue in her mouth and the scent of beer in her hair caused her to gag. Gross. Ouch. The blood crusted all over her face and neck, tightened her skin. She could suddenly hear her heart beating. Gypsy wondered if James was so stoned that he didn't even know she was long gone. She pictured him staring intently at the TV, pupils dilated and body numb. Her heart raced. She remembered Uncle Ken telling her, "You can always pray, Gypsy. When it gets too hard, you can always pray." She prayed earlier after James had attacked her, although the effort had felt futile. Now it seemed like her only option. So desperately, she prayed. "Dear God, help. Does he know I'm gone and need help? Serious help? Please, please, please." As the words left her mouth, she heard leaves crunching under approaching footsteps. She remembered Uncle Ken telling her that she needed faith. But already she could feel familiar spirits, the ones that Lilith used to conjure. It had been years since I felt this kind of witch-like evil. Her tears, saltiness burned the broken skin on her cheeks. What is faith? Her mind flowed from dream to reality and back again. During the dreamlike state, she was stricken with a vision of Lilith. In these moments when she saw futuristic events, like those witnessed by a prophet or a psychic, she felt out of control. Gypsy saw Lilith and her sons, Eli and Bar, opening a new store. But the location did not look like Mississippi. She saw Rot opening a new store. But the location did not look like Mississippi. She saw Rot Sorry. I hope you guys can hear me. I'll wait a minute. I can't cancel that now. Can you hear me, George? I'm so sorry. I think it's back. Okay. It didn't look like Mississippi. She saw wrought iron bent around old buildings, flickering black street lamps, flanking the sidewalks, and glossy-looking stone streets. Long alleys were filled with balconies, and tall buildings were adorned with potted ferns. The place had an appearance of another country. Big, twisting oaks with Spanish moss hung like canopies over the street. She saw herself looking out of an open window, protected by black bars. She was gripping the bars, staring just like her mother did in the early morning hours, with terror-filled eyes. glossed over and empty. Her stomach cramped from the acid, so Gypsy pressed back hard against the rising saliva. The footsteps she'd heard, they had vanished. Been imagined? She strained to listen, holding her breath for several seconds. Maybe whoever it was had gone, leaving her for dead. Had it all been too much for him? She whispered. A moaning, deep pain pressed the contents of her stomach and throat up until her face and neck were covered in bile. The center of her forehead was numb. The third eye thing, the slithering Lilith kept chanting some third eye, something over me, and ever since, Gypsy turned her head and spit, raising her forearm to wipe what she could off to warm her skin. I'll never see him again. She choked, swallowing, as her stomach tightened from the pressure it took to clear her throat. I'm so sorry, James. I'm so sorry. I was not strong enough to love you through your pain. Gypsy closed her eyes, trying to push the terror out of her insides. Why did she love someone who hurt her? Abused her? It wasn't love. It couldn't be love. And why was she always so sorry? Her stomach turned and something moved in her heart. She flinched, every muscle sore to the touch, and swallowed hard, accepting he had hurt her. A thought, somehow separate from her own, found her. I have overcome all evil, all rebellion, with my love. No one is too far gone, for I am the morning star. So Gypsy was hearing that. It's in italics. Chapter 8, The Perfect Victim. I guess we could go one more chapter if y'all want to. We're reading Gypsy. Or one more segment. We'll go one more chapter, chapter 8. At least we're doing 4 a day. The Perfect Victim. Lilith's spiritual strength rose within her. Her chin so high, she had to look down as she scanned her home. Regardless of the fire's warm flicker, the whole house was still cold and sharp. Dust and clutter blanketed every surface. She grinned a wicked grin and walked with resolve along the creaky floor, welcoming the pride as she thought of all she had accomplished. With her power, my power. Checking the front room of her home, she nodded in approval. Every witch's need. Her eyes fluttered from the reflection of all the crystals and mirrored art, a melting pot of brewed-up curses from all over the world. She glared at her collection of tattered books on magic, sorcery, and voodoo. Mirrors and tapestries hung about, moving faintly with just a breeze. Tattered rugs and worn fabric further adorned the room, along with candles perched on rusted brass tiers and a collection of old relic artwork. She filled her chest with the glorious, musty air, fighting hard to pull in the scents of wax coatings, old book paper, and eccentric fabrics from other lands, each bringing its own nuance of nuances. She loved that. An eerie blue fog hovered in the 2 front rooms and seemed to cloak her as she knelt before the altar. Balakabaha la ma'ashabalaka. Teral alamaho, but goes on. After calling up the spirit gods, She sensed her oldest son coming up from the basin. Eli must be ready. His stature alone was intimidating, tall and thick, and it was hard to move that much girth quietly. But Lilith sensed his approach even before a squeak of the board echoed. She moved out of the altar room, past her trinket store, and crossed into the living room. Lilith clenched her fingers tight before wiping the dust from the black frame. She reminisced over the picture of her little gypsy's birth at the hospital and sighed. How did I ever let you get away? Shame on me. She noticed Gypsy's mother, drug-induced trance, and remembered making sure her body would habituate to the drugs. She recalled the warning that Papa Legba, her overseer, had given her regarding the child. There is no option other than to train her from birth to her destiny. She knew she had to keep her this time, or Lilith would be Legba's next meal. He had hexed the order of the witches over Gypsy's life and promised death over Lilith if she failed. Opening the flap stand on the back of the frame and feeling the burning heat penetrate her stockings, Lilith placed the photo back on the mantle. She sighed as the pop and crack of the wood soothed her. She took a moment and sat in her rocker, rubbing her heat from her legs and transferring it to her calloused hands. Hands that kept snagging her stockings. As she bent over, she noticed the wooden floor was dusty in the corners. That lazy bar. She sat in her rocker and repeated the mantra softly. The time has arrived. Dark is she, but brilliant. Black are her wings, black on black. Her lips are red as rose, kissing all of the universe. She is Lilith, who leadeth forth the hordes of the abyss and leadeth man to liberation. She is the irresistible fulfiller of all lust's seer desire. First of all women was she. Lilith, not Eve, was the first. Her hand brings forth the revolution of the will and true freedom of the mind. She is Kilseus, queen of magic. Look on her in lust and despair. Lilith sensed movement again and stood summoning her spirit as Eli entered and nodded. She twitched her nose from the earthen smell, making its way through the cracked basement door, opposing the burning incense eucalyptus. She nodded, certain she was the only one who could hear the evil darkness looming in the abyss under the store. Kill Bar's father now. You think your brother could kill his own dad? You're not ready. After you know all he knows, Lilith pushed a curse through her eyes at the boy. Bar's father's workshop was also buried beneath the earth, just deep enough to muffle a gunshot. Lilith loved to bury things. She pictured her herbs blooming, ready for use, and all of her magic potions, and sneered, envisioning all the animal bones and other bones never surfacing. Eli, what's buried is not the goal. He's just a stumbling block. Gypsy is the goal. We have a run out of time. Lilith felt the power in her glare as she pushed energy out of her eye gate and into Eli's. He knows everything. There's no other way, Eli. Eli looked down and away as slow shakes of his head back and forth seemed to overtake him. He looked weak, unsteady, like a crooked noodle. Gypsy's power is our prophet. You know the Wiccan way. We do what we're told. We are tight-knit. We do not go outside of our circle for anything. Legba will be burying us next. Lilith pressed in with her glare. Stop him. It is time. He knows too much. She waved her athame, twilight flickering off the triple goddess symbol on the handle of the knife. Slamming the weapon down on the end table sent a vibration through her body, and a deep roar escaped her lips. Eli moved. Lilith Alva turned from her son and walked back to her dark glass altar, reflecting the purple and blue light of the candle's glow. Brass bells and wind chimes rang from the store. Entranced by the reflection of her own eyes, she imagined fire, a brilliant orange fire. Eli's flaming red hair almost glowed in the background and looked ablaze as he shook his head. She chanted the incantation, demanding her son finish the task. Such a young boy, such a dark act. She watched as Eli disappeared, his glowing head bobbing as he lumbered down the wooden stairs into the concrete cave beneath. Within minutes, another vibration rose into Lilith from the floor. This time, the shot was fired, pressure released from her chest. Her muscles softened, obstacle removed. She could sense the demons of hell dancing. Music thundered from below, almost becoming part of her as she embraced her craft, her nostrils filled with incense, burning deep, penetrating the corners of her eyes as she released burning tears with the finished curse of death on her husband. Suddenly, the full moon's light streamed in, illuminating Eli's wide, terror-filled eyes as he hunched, gasping for air, gripping the basement door's edge. As the door swung, he collapsed with a thud, shaking her again. Just like your father, you need to toughen up. This is only the beginning. Lilith knew he couldn't hear her, but she said it with the athame raised and authority in her voice. Eli, my boy, your weakness for blood and death must be embraced as power. I command you to harden your heart to this weak nonsense. Then there's a break. And right here, it says, tears fell from heaven in the form of the former rain. And in the violent wind, a whisper was heard. I have overcome all evil, all rebellion, with my love. No one is too far gone, for I am. In big letters. Two more pages of this chapter. This is also sectioned off. Memory of the vision of Papa L. Gypsy woke up shivering, her lungs tight, her heart racing. She gasped for breath, clenching her teddy bear. Mama! She didn't want to wake her father, so she took a deep breath, counting her heartbeats and trying to keep the tears back. Her princess pajamas felt painted on, and the back of her hair was stuck to her neck. Her Barbie clock read 3:33, and her eyes left the neon. She blinked hard, adjusting her pupils to let the strangest scene in. One large man in the middle of her room stood stoic, surrounded by slithering, luminous creatures, chanting with scratchy voices, "Papa Legba, Papa Legba." Paralyzed, she feared for her life. An indescribable weight was holding her voice inside her body. She fought to let out a warning cry, but realized there was no safe place for it to land. No hand would her voice beckon for help. The Papa Man shouted as he raised a glimmering staff. "Deep darkness covers her mind. From under the earth, fill her with power to use at my command. Child, you will remember that dream no more." Everything in the room went silent. Even the clock shut down. But Gypsy still remembered her dream. She remembered it. The man was standing there. It was real. A real bad guy stood in the middle of her room, much different from her father, because Papa L knew he was evil. It was his job to embrace the darkness. Back to the swamp. This is the end of this chapter. The dream, along with many other dreams, kept racing through her mind and would repeat themselves often enough, and she would always remember. But she was not 9 years old anymore. In this dream, no, this was real. Lying on the ground in the woods, she was older now and only wished this was a dream. Married but not happily, and extremely scared to be alone. Yet here she was, completely alone. Her hangover was awful. She swallowed again and again, slightly moving her head to feel the pain in her neck, reminding her that she was awake. She couldn't tell a dream from a vision hardly, but slowly a vision came mixed with her present circumstance. She envisioned herself lying in the center of a star like the ones she would draw across the top of her construction paper as a child. Her head was covered in blood. Was she dead? She felt dead. Blackness and blood. Women, lots of women in black, chanting. Her shoulders dropped. She finally took in air, feeling the release of pressure and some peace as an angelic creature appeared. "Remember, Gypsy, I have chosen you. I love you." The voice was distinct. A powerful, cloud-like presence passed through her entire body, engulfed all her fear and pain, every bit. A moment of peace she would never forget. Her name didn't sound at all the same, but she knew it was hers. One of the women she envisioned was now glowing, transitioning from what Gypsy knew to be an angel to a real woman and then back again. The others in black did not see the shift. She suddenly remembered a dream she'd had as a child. The same scene. I was in that dream. She was living the dream out now. She squeezed her eyes shut tight, feeling the creases of each eyelid. After she had woken from that dream, all those years ago, she had reached for a pencil and some paper, flipped on her lamp, almost tipping it off her nightstand. She had grabbed her pink pencil with the strawberry-scented eraser and scribbled Hebrews 13, 1 through 3. I am dead or going to die, and I must remember there will be an angel. The man and the snake-like creatures had gone suddenly, but she had remembered every detail and had known she had better not forget. Not then, not 9 years from then, and not 13 years from then. She remembered how small her hand was and counting on it, and then recounting the numbers 18 and 21. Well, that was